Amazon's Rings of Power has now finished, and it is safe to say that fans want it to go back to the shadows from where it came. In this video analysis, I will be looking at the key fundamental reason why I believe fans of Tolkien hate the show so much. You have probably seen multiple videos talking about the poor dialogue, plot or political messaging. I believe even with those fixed, fans would hate it because it doesn't follow Tolkien's simple theme of good versus evil. Let me explain. My first introduction to Tolkien's world was with the Peter Jackson trilogy, and to this day, these are my favourite movies. For a young hobbit like me, it was so easy to understand the underlying theme of good versus evil, and I think that's why I got so hooked on the films. Because children tend to see the world as black and white, it was easy for me to attach myself to characters like Aragorn, who just wanted to do good in the world. It was simple. The hobbits, elves, dwarves and people were good, and the orcs were bad. Yes, some characters like Boromir or Frodo did some questionable things, but they were not evil, and they were mostly manipulated by the evil in the One Ring. This is where the Rings of Power struggles straight from the beginning. The characters they created do not follow the simple theme of good or evil. By the end of the final episode, me and a lot of people I know wanted Sauron to win, because he seemed to have the moral high ground of the majority of our protagonists. I will explain this shortly, but first let's look at the races we were introduced to in the show and see if they are good or evil. In The Lord of the Rings, we were first introduced to the hobbits. Simple creatures that just wanted to party and have fun. One of the most pure and good beings in Tolkien's work. Compare this to the Half-Foots. These creatures don't think twice about leaving their injured friends behind, and sometimes purposefully de-wheel caravans as punishment to sentence their friends to death. Now tell me, would you say Half-Foots are good? I don't think so. They might be small and cute, but their actions are pure evil. But maybe that one was a one-off. Let's take a look at the orcs in the series. The whole objective is to find a home. This goal is fundamentally not evil and commonly used as a goal for protagonists in stories. So why would we want them to not achieve it? Compare this to the Jackson trilogy, where the orcs want to end mankind as a whole. Considering how evil a goal this is, it is easy for viewers to want to oppose them. What the Rings of Power have done is take Tolkien's theme from black and white, they made everyone grey. From a writing perspective, grey characters are not bad. Arguably, they can make a much more interesting viewing experience, like it does in The House of the Dragon, as it makes the characters appear more like real-life people. The problem is that, unlike George R. R. Martin, Tolkien's work was never about the people, but fundamental themes and ideologies. The biggest example showing the Rings of Power not following the theme of good and evil can be seen by looking at the two main characters of the show, Galadriel and Halbrand. Let's take a look at these two characters' actions throughout the show to determine if they are good or evil. Let's start with Halbrand. He saves Galadriel, helps Galadriel convince Queen Muriel to fight in the Southlands. He saves Isildur's dad, helps Celebrimbor in the Forge, helps make rings to help elves survive. He wants to create peace in Middle-earth. Now, for what he did bad, he ditches people on the raft to save himself. He assaults and steals from the Númenóreans. He wants to kill Adar, and he nearly drowns Galadriel after she finds out he's Sauron. Now, let's look at our protagonist, Galadriel. She gets Halbrand out of prison, she takes care of Theo after the volcano explodes, she makes Halbrand king of the Southlands, she saves Halbrand's life from a stab wound, and she rejects to be the queen of Middle-earth. Now, for the bad things she did. She wanted to ditch her men in the mountaintops. She disobeyed her king. She threatened Queen Muriel. She threatened Isildur's dad. She blackmailed Halbrand into leaving Númenor. She threatened to torture the captured orcs. She wanted to kill Adar. She doesn't help any people in the ashes and fire left from the volcano. She lies to Elrond about who Halbrand was, and she ends up making the rings like Sauron suggested. Now, looking at the actions of these two characters, who would you say is good and who is evil? Do you see the problem now? How is it possible that our protagonist has done much worse things than the second most evil character in Tolkien's writing? The theme of good versus evil is completely non-existent in this show. It should be okay if it was not meant to represent Tolkien's works. As viewers, how are we expected to support the protagonists who are worse than the quote-unquote bad guys? Don't get me wrong, a protagonist can have flaws. They're often encouraged to have flaws. They are not meant to be evil. Just imagine in The Return of the King, Aragorn set Denethor on fire so that he can claim his crown. It would make no sense, because Aragorn is meant to be a good character, and setting someone on fire would make him borderline evil. Lord of the Rings wiki has the perfect picture for this. As you can see, the characters of the Rings of Power don't obey this metric, because they could all be based around the centre, as they are neither good or bad. In conclusion, I believe Tolkien's fans hate the Rings of Power because the characters do not fit into Tolkien's universe. They are way too morally grey. Only whilst making this video I realised how difficult it is to think of good things our protagonist Galadriel has done throughout the show. With the way they wrote this show, it is easy to make a conclusion that Galadriel is the reason for all the bad things that will happen to Middle-earth from this point on. How are we supposed to support someone like that? Let's hope for season 2 the new writers will actually stick to Tolkien's fundamentals. What did you think of the show? Let me know.